Welcome to City Talk, a weekly conversation produced by the City of Waco to inform you about city events and projects. Each week, we'll bring you interesting topics with city staff and community leaders to highlight how Waco is an exciting place to live and work.
Hi there, welcome to City Talk. My name's Dori Helm, and I'm the Assistant Director of Municipal Information, and we are here today with Jonathan Echols. He is the Public Relations Coordinator for Water Utility Services. And we're going to talk about all things water and anything else interesting that might pop up, so you might just follow along for the ride. So, full disclosure, Jonathan has the position I used to have, so I'm trying to wear my water hat today and remember all that fun stuff. But tell us a little bit about the family. How's the family doing?
They're great.
Yeah?
I've got two girls, 14 and just turned 9, so they keep me busy.
Yeah?
Everybody's good.
Yeah? How's Kendra?
She's good.
Yeah?
She's going to teach, she's been teaching first grade. This year she'll be teaching kindergarten. So, and apparently that is a whole different ballgame from what I hear. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And the 14-year-old is interested in boys?
It
give or take.
begrudges me to say so, but probably to some extent.
That's okay.
I like to imagine no, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll pretend like it's not really happening. So,
Right. Thank you.
so Jonathan's going to talk to us about the Consumer Confidence Report, and we'll maybe cover a little bit of water, maybe water process type things. But
Sure.
the Consumer Confidence Report is called the CCR as well,
Right.
and it's required. And can you tell us a little bit about why we do it and what's in it?
Yeah, sure. So we also some people call it a water quality report, and that's really what it is. It reports on the quality of the water from the previous year. So each year there are lots of analytical tests done, and those come back, and the following year we create this report so that everyone in the public can find out what was in the drinking water. That's the idea. And this all comes from the Clean Drinking Water Act.
Yeah.
And then some amendments to that in the 90s. So that's why we do it. It's mandated by the federal government, and then the states all kind of oversee that, and so we're required to do it. So that's kind of what it is.
So, and of course, Waco has exemplary water. It's fantastic.
I mean, really, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's pretty true. When you look at the report, it's kind of, and people can find it online, and we have it printed. In the old days, we used to mail them out, but now we put it online, and we post it all over town so they can find it. But when you look at the report, it looks kind of science-y. It's got tables and lots of figures and
Math.
things in there. Yeah. So if I had my druthers, that's probably not the way I would do it. Of course, it's required to be in there a certain way. So it might be a little bit confusing, but basically you read across and it tells you there's this much in, and this is how much is allowed to be in, and this is a good amount to be in, and this is okay, that kind of stuff. So it can be confusing, but
A little bit. Well, and if I remember right, it's like fancy words like chlorophyll.
yeah.
There's a word called lead.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
lot of things that we're very lucky in Waco that we have high quality water.
Right.
And we
Right.
provide all of the water to the citizens through Lake Waco,
Right.
and we're lucky that we have kind of a big water supply.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something else that's interesting about the data analysis that's in there is the fact that we're able to read at this point in time such minute parts
Yes.
of things in the water. So when you see things like arsenic or something like that we know is bad, and we're talking about it in parts per billion, which is hard for most people to wrap their minds around. So it's these tiny minuscule parts. These things have always been there, but we're now able to detect them because of technology. So sometimes that kind of scares people, but it's
Yeah.
important to remember that we're talking about very minuscule amounts. So
Yeah, parts per billion. That sounds like a math class that I don't want to take.
yeah,
Well, and I've noticed that aren't there signs around town that say TCQ, some sort of positive water?
yeah.
It escapes me what they say, but
Gosh, I drew a blank.
I did too.
Something like recognized high quality
Yes,
water
high
system,
quality
and
water
that's
system.
true. So we meet, and we always have met all the certain standards to be able to have that sign and to be able to say that. And knock on wood, we've really never had a lot of huge problems. In the old days, we used to have some taste and odor problems, which I'm sure people may or may not remember. But those taste and odor problems are kind of in our past at this point.
Yes, and we're very, very lucky.
Very lucky.
So in the water system, so again, I'm putting on my water hat from many moons ago, but like when you join a department like water utilities, you learn a little bit about where the water goes, where it comes from, how it gets to your tap. And I think before I worked there, I really didn't understand all of that. You turn your water on and done. But really, it starts way before that.
That's right. Yeah.
So is there a lightning fast overview you could give us?
Sure. Yeah. And by the way, that's true for me too. And
yes.
And I always have to remind myself that I have to try to put myself back in that time before I worked there and try to think like, what did I think about that? Mm-hmm. And I think I didn't think very much at all about it.
I totally agree. I feel like I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, and so that's probably the case for a lot of people. So anyway, lightning quick overview. It starts in what we would probably call the watershed, which is where the water comes from that flows into the lake. And once it gets into our lake, we withdraw it from our lake, and it starts in a treatment process. And for us, that means starts with dissolved air flotation, and then ozonation, and then we send it on to a whole nother treatment plant. So we really kind of treat it twice. And at the other treatment plants, it goes through what we call traditional treatment, which is very old school, but it's sedimentation basins, and then contact time with chlorine, and then at the very end, filtration. So it's gone through lots of processes before it finally actually gets sent out into the distribution system.
Yes. That's a good lightning fast version. There's more to it, but we'll let the water quality experts address all of that. But I also thought it was really interesting that there are so many crews that make the water, that make it reliable, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got water treatment plant operators that are there 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And they sample and test all through the night, and it's all kind of relegated by the state, which is what you want. And then you also have, distribution crews and utility workers that do new taps and things like that for customers. And I know that you and I worked during this lovely winter storm that we had, and I've never appreciated them more.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and especially in a Texas summer, or a Texas second winter.
Yeah, right.
So tell me about that. How was that for you, and what did you see the guys and girls doing out there?
Yeah, it's a great point, because I think this is one of those things, maybe second only to like electricity or equal to that, where there's lots of people working all the time behind the scenes that you never really see or think about. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So for us, we have probably about 150 people working in the department, and probably maybe like 90 of those are licensed by the state to work with water. So that's the water operators at the treatment plants and the guys that are out that you're talking about, the crews out fixing leaks, and they were doing lots of that during the winter storm. And they're always doing that because there are always leaks. So it is hard work, especially when there's, when you consider the fact that it doesn't matter how hot it is or how cold it is or what time of night it is, they'll be out there working on it, making sure that water is able to flow, and you're able to have water come out when you turn that faucet on. So there's always multiple people behind the scenes working to make sure that that's going to happen.
I so appreciate all the things that they do, especially during that time, because there were a lot of citizens that reached out and said, it's 2:00 and I see the crew out there, and it's, I don't know what it was, 9 degrees. It was not pleasant, and it was cold and wet, and they were fixing leaks the whole time. They would sleep for about 8 hours, and then they'd go right back out. And we all worked a lot too, but it doesn't really compare.
In the warmth of the home, and we thought we were struggling with whatever. But yeah, it's a whole nother ball game when you're outside working in it, and that's what they were doing.
Completely. Well, and we have, as we said before, we're very lucky. We have Lake Waco. Lake Waco's our water supply, and it holds quite a bit of water, which is good. But conservation is always still important. Yeah. Mostly because it's just the right thing to do. Right. What are some good ways to conserve, especially since it's August and it feels like it's about 127?
Yeah, it does.
Outside.
So probably the biggest conservation effort that people could make, because the biggest amount, the largest amount of water that gets used, and this is true for most cities, it's not just Waco, is outdoor irrigation. So people watering their grass, their plants, stuff like that. And so,
I mean, I can't turn on my sprinkler.
you can. You just shouldn't. Maybe, probably for most people, they probably don't need to do it as much as they might think they do.
Right.
I think people these days are smarter than they used to be about it. So a lot of them really are. But yeah, there's lots of tools and things online where you can go and find out, how much do I really need to be watering my water. And there's even things that you can find that will tell you, based on the weather and based on the moisture, all that stuff. So, but that's probably the biggest thing that people can do to conserve is just make sure you're not overwatering.
That is true.
Irrigating outside.
And should you water at like 3 in the afternoon?
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad
that's
you
my
asked that.
favorite one. Because not naming any names, but maybe I have some neighbors that are doing that.
Absolutely not. In fact, you're probably just wasting most of it. That's the crazy thing about that. You should water, in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Really for 2 reasons. One, because you won't have it all evaporated. And 2, because not everybody else will be watering, hopefully. So if you can, you want to try to water when no one else is watering because you'll have more water pressure and all that stuff too, because in some areas that can be a problem. So
that's very true. And like sometimes you see those things that say if you can bake cookies on the dash of your car, maybe you shouldn't be irrigating your lawn because you might be wasting a little bit of water.
That's very true.
But yeah, that's the main one that I remember too was promoting like maybe water in the morning, maybe water overnight.
Right.
Maybe save a little bit. Don't be out in the sun and doing it. And you can, if you sit there and watch your sprinklers, you can kind of see it float up.
Yeah.
And you know that you're missing half your water.
Yeah, there's some old tricks too. Like, these are really old school, but they used to say like put a tuna can in your yard.
Yes.
And when it's filled, or something like that.
Jonathan,
that's
memories.
more than enough water. Yeah.
So remember all
stuff.
of that.
I think most of these irrigation systems are more sophisticated nowadays, but some of them aren't. And even like on days when it rains, a lot of people might need to go and turn those off or change the schedule or whatever, because that's obviously a waste as well. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah,
sometimes you forget.
Yeah.
I mean,
you do.
I'll do better. But so our future. I know that Lake Waco's the source, but another part of that is that it's also a regional provider to a lot of our surrounding communities, and so
true.
We are kind of all partners in water.
Correct.
For the future, and we don't know how long it'll last us, so we have to be responsible with it. But we're very lucky that we can help with other communities, and even if you don't live in Waco, you probably use Waco resources and things like that. So
that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So I used to know how much water is in an acre foot, but I don't anymore.
Oh gosh!
I'll get you a Snickers if you can remember. But
it's a lot.
It is. It's a lot. It's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of gallons.
Yes.
But
and that is how they measure the water that's in the lake. When it comes to large amounts, they measure it in acre feet. So good memory.
Yeah, I wish I could remember how many. Someday. Okay, so we talked about the Consumer Confidence Report. Where did you say they could get it?
It's online, actually. If they can get it if they go to wacowater.com or if they just go to waco-texas.com and find their way to the water site, or they can get it by going directly to wacowaterquality.com. So we try to make it as easy as possible.
That's actually, I remember when we bought wacowater.com.
That's right. Yeah, you helped.
So since we're talking about water, we could also talk about wastewater.
Yeah.
It's not glamorous, but
no.
I'll tell you what, I appreciate our water crews, but man, do I appreciate our wastewater crews too.
Yeah.
That's that should be on that show, Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something, when you stand at the treatment plant for wastewater and you see what we call the effluent come out, which means the cleaned water come out, and it's so crystal clear.
That's crazy.
It's kind of amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. When you see, especially when you know and you've seen and you smelled what's going in there. It's super important. People don't want to think about it. Probably even more so than they want to think about water. But, the wastewater and the treatment and the disposal of it is super important. It's also, something that it has a significant cost involved to
Yeah.
it. So it's a service the city provides and takes care of, and it's another one of those things that goes on that people don't really think about. But there's a lot that goes into it. And you're right; it's amazing to see that water going back into the river.
It's
clean.
crazy. We went on a tour of it when I first took the job, and I saw it coming out into the river, and I was like, "That's the same water that
Yeah.
came in," and it looked like you could go swimming in it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive. And
It
they also have we have a regional wastewater plant
That's right.
that's also shared by a lot of
Yes.
cities, and so we are truly partners at a lot of this water infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's in terms of water. It's become over the years, even since you and I have been here. It's becoming more and more of a regional water provider. The groundwater that a lot of these smaller cities around us have been using, it doesn't last forever, and so in a lot of cases, it has become the case that they have needed to use some Waco water to offset some of that. So that's become more and more of a thing. And then the wastewater, that's been a regional thing for a little bit longer, but still definitely, more cost effective and just works a lot better for everybody to be involved in that. So
Yeah, and I think, refresh me, but I think water utilities has 7 divisions. Am I right?
something like that, yeah.
And you also have the Lake Waco Wetlands, so
Right.
maybe that would be a division, but you have,
Yeah.
I want to say it's 7 divisions, and then you could also say kind of sort of that all of those cities have 7 divisions, I guess. But in a nutshell, we have the DAF plant, like you said, that was the first part of treatment. Then you go into the 2 second steps of treatment. But when you talk about the DAF, which is off of Lakeshore, right?
The Airport Road and Lakeshore.
Airport
right
Road,
there.
Lakeshore.
Yeah.
So what does the DAF do when it pulls from the lake?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's right there by the lake, and that's so that it can address the taste and odor problem that we were talking about, and without getting too much into the weeds of that. But so the water comes in to the DAF, and there are the process is specifically designed to remove the taste and odor problem, which is caused by algae. So when it comes in, there's basically air bubbles injected into the water in these tanks, and all of the particulate and algae stuff float up to the top, and it gets scraped off.
Wow.
And so that is specifically to remove the algae before it dies or has a chance to release its stinky chemicals into the water. So it's really effective. It's the technology that's been used for a long time and used for drinking water in Europe and other places. But at the time that Waco built it, I think it was the 3rd of its kind in the United States, and the first in Texas for sure. So it's pretty cool and pretty unique.
That is unique. I remember opening the
Yeah.
DAF vaguely. I don't know.
Yeah.
You might have already been here when we did that.
I was here. I had just gotten here.
And it was a huge deal.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was.
Everybody was very impressed with it because
Yeah.
it was so modern and
Yeah.
innovative. And now, I mean, when I was a kid, I remember taste and odor, but
Yep, me
there
too.
really isn't any now.
Yep, there
Which is-
isn't,
I mean,
no.
like you said before, knock on wood, but I think
Yeah.
we're so lucky.
We really are. We
Yeah,
really are.
and I mean, if there's a theme of this episode, it will be luck. But
Yeah.
but we do have we have a great opportunity for economic development because of water, and
right.
and we have the ability for future growth that a lot of cities don't have. So
Yeah, that's right. It's unique. I always tell people, people in Waco, because you and I grew up here, and so we know. You just become accustomed to the fact that we have so much water, and but that's not the case in a lot of other places. They are constantly rationing all year long in a lot of places, and we are so fortunate here that we have, really an abundance of water. It's never been an issue. We very rarely had to ask people to ration. We ask them to voluntarily from time to time, but that's about the extent. So we're so fortunate, and I don't know. Sometimes you can become complacent about that and think like, and
run your sprinklers at 3 o'clock in the
exactly.
afternoon. Well, and I mean, another thing that maybe our residents don't realize is that we do have a call center, and it's 299 City, but when you call them, they answer all city questions.
That's right.
But if you ever had, a random question about water, they can answer that as well.
Yep.
And it's easy to find them, and they do answer the phone 24 hours a day.
They do.
Which is pretty cool. There's 7 or 8 folks in there that answer the phones?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It varies from time to time, but yeah, there's about that many, and that is. I'm glad you brought that up because that's another part of what we do that probably a lot of people don't know. But the call center that answers calls for the entire city. And another thing interesting about that is that we just recently, well, within the last year, got a new system that allows people to call in, and they don't necessarily have to talk to someone if they don't want to.
Yeah.
They can just pay through an automated system that we didn't have that before, so that's somewhat new for us.
And doesn't that system, or is it another system that makes it easier for folks to detect if they have a leak?
That's not that system.
It's another
that's
one.
going to be tied into that system. It's really close to being finished.
Good.
That's part of the whole automated meter infrastructure, AMI stuff. So it's not quite all online yet, but it's really close. So
That'll be
that's
helpful.
it's going to be really neat.
Because, to detect a leak can be tricky, and you have to look and see if your meter's spinning and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really cool.
But it'll be nice to be able to call in and do it.
Yeah.
And then we also have the Lake Waco Wetlands, like we mentioned before, which is kind of a partnership project as well. But the key word is partnership, I guess. But Baylor does a lot of work out there, and they do a lot of habitat research out there. And I'm sure Nora Shell has been on this show, and she talks about all the things that she does.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a project that we put into place to offset some water quality issues, and it became kind of a living classroom.
Right.
Have you been out there lately?
It's been probably maybe a year since I've been out there, but I've been out there many times previously. And so like you said, I just wanted to mention part of the reason that we have such an abundant water supply is because in the past decisions have been made, and one of those was in like 2001 to raise the level of the lake by 7 feet, which gave us that much more water. And so as part of that project, to mitigate the part of the habitat that we were going to flood, we created this wetland.
See,
so,
you remember better than me.
Yeah. But you're right. It is a partnership with Baylor, and Baylor does all kinds of research out there. And we haven't a lot in the last year because of COVID and all that, but we have lots of school groups typically come out there for field trips, and so it's a really cool, really neat thing. It's open to the public too, so people can come.
Yeah, I saw there are a lot of bird watchers out there, and I think people have been riding bikes too.
Yeah,
and we just recently put like a dog waste station. I was trying to think of a nice way to say
right.
dog waste station, because I know a lot of people are walking their dogs out there too.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's well, maybe not right now because it's been a little warm, but anyway,
it's a neat place. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I know that we have 2 water plants. I know we're going all over this water system, but as we talk, it all comes back to me a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's there's Mount Carmel's a little bigger, handles more millions per gallons a day.
Right.
But this month right now is generally the highest usage month.
That is true.
So if you're going to conserve, now is the time to conserve,
the time to do it, yes.
because there are some peak times of the day that make it really difficult to maintain our water levels. Now, we're lucky that our system is sound and we can, but every little bit helps.
No, yeah, that's absolutely
especially
a
when
thing.
it's
Yeah.
so hot. But.
Yeah. No, there's all kinds of juggling behind the scenes, moving water here, moving water there.
Yeah.
That goes on, which is this is probably the most difficult part of the year for us for those reasons, moving water around,
Yeah.
because of the temperature and because of the abundance of use.
For sure.
So,
Well, I mean, is there anything else that we missed that we should talk about the CCR for? Everybody should read the CCR and know how wonderful their water is, and they can pick one up.
Yeah.
Anything else that we missed about water that's fantastic?
No, I guess I would probably just say, Waco's a great place, and in addition to being a great place, fortunate to have a great supply of water, of high quality water, and a lot of it, quantity and quality. And so it's something that people probably don't often think about, but something that adds to and definitely improves the area for all kinds of reasons. So.
Yeah, and we also we have a lot of our information online. We also have an annual report that lists like the miles of water main and the mile. And when you think about all that, I mean, again, thank you, crews, for maintaining all of that. But our guys out there digging holes in 120 degrees, we appreciate. But you can also find out a little bit more about how much is out there, and you can also find a little bit more about find out a little bit more about your water. But
Yep.
Okay, well, I can't think of anything else to cover.
Can't either. Thanks for having me on to talk about all this
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I guess we could just say thank you for a little while longer. But water is probably one of our bigger departments. You know, there's a little over 20 departments in the city, and water is a big, big deal. So we are thankful for what they do. We do appreciate public safety as well. But if the water didn't come on, I think the residents would notice.
Yeah, I think,
So-
the truth is it's one of those things, what I've learned in my time in that department is it's one of those things that it's just an absolute necessity. You know, people do need public safety, people do need their trash removed, and people do need water. And of those three, when you really think about it, not knocking the other two,
Absolutely not.
but water, you can't live without it.
No, you can't.
So
I mean, you would probably have an issue.
Yeah.
So
You need
yeah,
it.
we do appreciate it. Well, I can't think of anything else. So
That's all I got.
I appreciate you coming by. It's good to talk to you and catch up.
Yep. Always good. Thanks.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed City Talk, a production of the City of Waco. Catch this program on local radio stations on Sunday mornings at 6:30 a.m. Find the podcast on your favorite podcast streaming service by searching City of Waco, or view it online at wccc.tv.